Wisconsin voters believe 3 Democratic candidates could beat out President Trump in the 2020 election. That's according to the latest Marquette Law School poll released yesterday.
We want to welcome director of that poll, Charles Franklin, joining us now to talk a little bit more about the findings. They are vast, but let's start first with this issue of who might be able to beat the president on the Democratic side.
It's a fairly close race. Biden has a 6-point lead over Trump. Bernie Sanders is 2 points up, and Elizabeth Warren is 1 point up. Those last two are clearly inside the margin of error. And we did test Pete Buttigieg for the first time. He's 2 points behind Trump. So 3 of them are inside the margin of error, and Biden a little outside of that, but still just a 6-point lead. He was ahead by 9 in August, so it's tightened just a little bit.
That's what I was going to ask. Is this kind of expected the way it's going, or anything surprise you in that regard?
Well, I think it's really early in the process, and so, you know, these are telling us a little bit about the race, but they're hardly predictions of where we'll end up. What we saw in the Democratic primary side is that Biden stays in first place, but Warren moves up to second and Bernie falls to third, and then Buttigieg is fourth and the others are further down. So there's a little bit of change in that Democratic primary as well.
And Bernie won the last time in 2016.
He certainly did, but now going from second into third place, he's not as competitive as he was against Clinton, and ultimately, of course, winning in 2016 in the primary.
And what was the political makeup of the people you polled?
It's a registered voter sample of the state. It's about evenly balanced, 45% Republican, 44 Democratic. That's very close to the 45-45 split we've had on average over the last 2 years.
Okay.
And per usual, you covered a lot of ground, a lot of national and state issues as well, one of them being an important one in the election and otherwise to folks, that being gun control. What did you see there?
Well, gun control is interesting. We've polled about it a lot. In this particular poll, we asked about a mandatory buyback of assault weapons, which has been proposed by Beto O'Rourke, among others in particular. They are a majority, over 50%, oppose that kind of buyback, with support down around 42% or so. But there's a huge partisan gap, just 13% of Republicans for it, but 77% among Democrats. But in August, when we asked about background checks and a red flag law, over 80% support that overall, and it's over 70% of Republicans that support both of those, and even higher for Democrats. So the point here is the gun issue is a complicated issue. There's some aspects of it where there's overwhelming support and it's truly bipartisan. There are other areas like the buyback where it's much less popular, majority opposed, and huge partisan splits. And
the governor's using your numbers from that poll at 80% to call the special session.
Right. This is the argument that this is low-hanging fruit, that if 70+% of Republicans can agree that background checks are a good idea, why don't we do it?
Sure.
But this is partly a matter of the interest group politics that are involved. The National Rifle Association and pro-gun groups feel very strongly about any kind of restrictions on gun rights. And we see so far, at least, that Republican legislators are very reluctant to even do the things that big majorities say. The one other part is that when in the past we've asked, do you think these gun laws would be effective in reducing gun violence? It's a majority that think only modest effects, and a not trivial minority that thinks it would have pretty big effects. So I think part of the message from that is advocates for gun measures need to explain to the public why they would make a difference and try to bring the public along. And those who are opposed to them, to any kind of gun measures, should be pushed to tell us a little bit about what they're going to do about shootings in schools and shopping centers if they're not going to do these things that 80% of the public can agree with.
Sure.
In the end, I think a conversation about that is the best thing we can have for the public, but it's hard to have that conversation.
Yeah, so partisan.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the impeachment process that's going on right now.
Shift in opinion there. Back in April, at the end of the Mueller report, 26% favored impeachment hearings. Now it's 46%. So it's really pumped up over that time. However, 49% say we should not have hearings. So it's a close division, but a small plurality by 3 percentage points saying don't hold hearings yet. But the change that we see from April till now is really quite substantial. Also, we were in the field interviewing people a week ago before the latest round of testimony, and so this reflects the letter, which 40% say they've seen or read, and of those who've read, they're 9 points more supportive of doing hearings than those who haven't read, and there's no partisan difference in whether you've read or not. So that's a pretty telling thing, that understanding, learning a little bit about what's going on seems to boost support a little bit, 9 points for hearings.
But as you say, every day there's something else. It's hard to keep up with it.
It's a moving story. So when we're back in a month with next month's poll, how this has changed, whether support for hearings has gone up, stalled, or fallen off, will be a really interesting story.
It will be.
Yeah.
Interesting as usual. Charles, thank you.
A lot of information.
We'll see you in a month, if not before.
No, it's out.
Right.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with the final check of your forecast.
Right, Freddie, roll playback.